G'day, Stu from UAVfutures here, and welcome back to the part 2, which is the part 1 and whatever, the bench breakdown, the text and the specs of this budget racer here, the mystery drone, the X220, whatever it is. It's linked down below. You can go watch the flight review up there. We had a lot of fun, and I've got to say, for a budget flight, it did fly around pretty well. Now, one part that's frustrating me, we're about to put it on the bench, look at the text and the specs, but the price of this thing, I just can't seem to get it right, because when I first had it, it was like around the 200 buck mark, and then I did the part, like the first video that you saw, and the price had gone up to like 230, and then I saw for some reason it jumped down to like 160. So to be honest, this thing is between $160 or $159 to $230. So I'm not too sure what the price is, and of course that is a huge part of this drone. If you can get it for a cheap price, if it is still that 160 when the time this video is going back up, that is amazing. But if it's up near the 230 price, well then you should just be getting something like the Hawk 5 and something like that. Anyway, enough rambling about this crazy mystery drones prices. What this is the bench breakdown, the text and the specs. We're going to put it on the bench, break it down, talk about some things I do like, and then there's some quality control things that I do wish they'd change. But if it is at that budget price, well, we can't complain too much. Anyway, let's sit on the bench, have some fun in 3, 2, 1. Right here it is on the bench, the world's most generic quad X220 Yaris Sky, whatever it is. It's linked down below. I wasn't terribly excited when I got it out of the box, but I thought it'd be a bit of fun as a mystery. But now you've seen it fly, let's go through some of the components. So 4mm arms are all connected with 2 little brace plates right here in the middle. A very, very generic camera. If we started the outside, work our way in, the props that came with it were absolute rubbish. I wasn't a fan of those at all. They made a massive difference. So if you're going to get this, definitely do yourself spend like an extra $3 or something. I'll link some props down below. These are a much better choice. Something like the Avans or proper Cyclones, something like that. The motors weren't too bad. These Sky Stars 2306s, 2500 kV. That's a pretty decent, I guess, sort of generic motor. I was happy with its performance, and you saw the speed. It was pretty off the charts as well. In the middle, we've got our 4-in-1 BL Heli 32 ESC, our F4 flight control Betaflight OSD, and our VTX on the top as well. I wasn't very impressed with the antenna that came with it. I wish I still had it, but mine broke right here in the MMCX connector, and that part was a huge pain to try and replace. So to try and get that broken piece out, I think the antennas on this thing were rubbish. So I'm going to give it a thumbs down for that part. You know, like I said, super generic camera on the front, and overall, it doesn't really excite me. The components in here are about as generic and cheap as you can get. But you saw with the flight characteristics, it's actually performed okay. So I guess that brings me on to the design features. Everything in here, super generic, nothing special. You know, I do like how it's got 4 individual arms. I do think the actual carbon, the frame itself, is going to hold up quite well in crashes. The pros and cons, well, in the quality, I'd say the quality, 5 out of 10. Now that's a pretty low score for me. You sort of do get what you paid for, but in terms of the flight characteristics, the quality was up there. It was a very quality flight experience. I did like it when I was flying around. The tune was great, but the other solder joints and the components, just very, very generic, and the antenna breaking, so you're going to need to put your new antenna in, all that sort of stuff. That might have just been me and getting unlucky, but it's still, you know, the actual quad itself doesn't excite me terribly much whatsoever, but I've got to say, in the end of the day, I was impressed, like the other guys, with its flight performance. So, you know, I definitely think if you get one of these for a cheap enough price, I'll put the link down below, and also make sure you upgrade those props, because you never know, you might actually have you do have a decent little flyer. It's just, for me, incredibly generic. Alrighty, there it is. There's my review of the Sky whatever. There's so many names for this thing. Whatever it is, link down below, the X2, whatever it is. But overall, I've got to say, I was really surprised with the camera, with the tune, and with some better props on here, because those first props were absolute junk. It performed very, very nicely. Now, look, that doesn't mean it's perfect. It is a budget racer. I'm not sure how it's going to hold up in the long run in terms of those components. I do like the frame, but the speeds we were getting, and yes, it was windy, but over 100 miles per hour on a budget sort of racer, that's a very good sign for our hobby. Now, some things I would like to change as well. I really didn't like the antenna setup on here, and you know, my antenna, wherever it is, that broke the first time, so you definitely do need to be wary of that. It's a budget, no frills racer, you know, very, very, I would almost say dodgy, and I really wasn't expecting too much of this thing, and that's why I did it the mystery way. I was like, you know what, before I even look at it, let's go fly it, have some fun. But I'd love to know, what do you guys think? Is this something you're interested in? Is this the sort of performance you like? Is this what you want from budget racers? Is this not your cup of tea? All that sort of stuff. I'm going to link it down below. I think the price is about $220, but it might have changed because, look, sorry, I've had this one for a little while, so probably should have been reviewed a little bit more. Other than that, subscribe for more FPV mystery drone related action, and as always, happy flying! Alrighty, so hopefully you guys enjoyed that video. Definitely subscribe if you're new to the channel and check out these videos. And I'm also going to leave a little link here to my Patreon page because I've got some fantastic Patreon supporters and I like to give back to them as well. So if you want to join the UAVfutures family, there's things like bonus velcro straps, little bundles of FPV goodies and things like that that also get sent out. Anyway, happy flying!